I'm going to ask a shotgun approach question.
Yeah.
3 things that a person can do right now to save their immune system.
Uh, 3 things that a person can do right now. If we look at research with autoimmunity, the two foods that are show to be the most destructive is gluten from wheat, and dairy. So if I look at my children, right, I have autoimmunity. Their mom has autoimmunity. They're set up for autoimmunity genetically. Right? So my kids have been gluten and dairy free their entire life. Now, whether they have issues with the gluten or dairy specifically, don't know, don't care. They're gluten, they're dairy free. There may be other issues that are going on with people, food issues. You got to test. So I recommend people do good food panels so you can remove foods from your diet that you're reactive to. Now, foods that you're reactive to aren't necessarily bad foods, and they're not necessarily foods that give you symptoms either. We need to test through a very good lab like Cyrex on food reactions. So that's one of the things we can do. The health of the gut. That's where autoimmune disease, if we look at from the immunologist standpoint, most immunologists now believe that it is a breakdown in the barrier of the digestive tract that sets people up for autoimmunity. Remember we talked about these proteins, right? The way the digestive tract works is we have these little tiny finger-like projections in the small intestine called villi. And the villi are where we absorb nutrients. And the villi have very small holes in them, kind of like the screen on a window. When you open up your window, you got that screen there. It's got little small holes in it. Well, the idea of that screen is to allow certain things in, but not other things. Birds aren't going to get in, leaves aren't going to get in, but dust can come in. We don't want the dust to come in, but it's small enough to get in. So even though we have this villi here and we have these small little holes, it's not keeping everything out. It's just filtering by size. So the size of the holes in the villi are 5,000 Daltons in size. Dalton is a microscopic measurement, like an inch or a centimeter, but what they use microscopically to measure things. So it's 5,000 Daltons in size. Anything that is 5,000 Daltons or smaller is going to get in if the intestinal tract is intact. But what happens is a lot of people, because they're eating foods that they're reactive to, they're under stress, they have infections, different things that are going on, we get breakdown. We get either a breakdown of the cell itself, where the cells start to divide and split open, or we get an opening of the junctions in between the cells. Now, if the digestive tract is intact, we have to digest our proteins down to individual amino acids. So what a protein is a very long string of various amino acids attached to each other. As we digest that protein, we start to chop it up into pieces. The pieces, the smaller strings of amino acids that are being broken down because the proteins are being broken down, are called peptides, smaller chunks. So the pieces of strings that make up proteins. Well, we start to get down, and what is supposed to cross the digestive tract here through the villi are the individual amino acids. The immune system cannot have an immune system response to an individual amino acid, right? So if we're digesting our foods properly, our digestive tract is intact, then the only thing getting in our body is those amino acids, no immune system response. If the digestive tract is opening up, these junctions are opening up, and we're allowing larger protein molecules to come in, we're allowing these peptides to come in, the immune system, what it's targeting is not the whole protein, it's targeting specific peptide sequences. So now we're allowing these peptide sequences to get in the body from all these different foods that we're eating. This is considered foreign substance in the body. It's not supposed to be in, and the immune system starts to react to it. Now, if it starts to have reaction to certain peptides that have the same amino acid sequence as some of the tissues in our body have, boom, we start triggering the autoimmunity taking place.
Right, and wouldn't you say that's called leaky gut?
Leaky gut,
Right.
if we look at it from a research standpoint, that the technical name is intestinal permeability, the layperson's name is leaky gut, but they're the one and the same thing.
Right. And wouldn't that explain why, let's say, Sarah over here has been eating pineapple for 25 years, and now all of a sudden she can't eat it anymore because she has allergic reaction, because the immune system learned that whether it's pineapple leaking through the proteins, the amino acids that leaks through, and the immune system memorizes it and now start to react to every time
Correct.
she eats it.
That is definitely a mechanism that happens. And sometimes people don't even know that they're having these responses. You know, you have somebody with like a thyroid condition and they're eating these foods and they don't necessarily have any digestive problems. Their digestive tract feels fine. So they think that all the foods that they're eating are fine. But yet it's flaring up their thyroid condition, and it's causing them to have inability to lose weight, and it's causing them to have depression and infertility and hair loss and all kinds of other things because they're eating these certain foods, triggering the immune system.
Okay, so we have first, avoid gluten and dairy. Number 2, protect your gut. What would be the third one?
Number 3 would be, it's a tough one to pick the third one, but I would say the next most important thing is managing blood sugar. If I look at most, especially when we're looking at hypothyroid patients, the number of hypothyroid patients that I have coming in to see me who have what we call reactive hypoglycemia. So kind of what they're doing is they're missing breakfast. They're not eating breakfast, or they're having like coffee and a muffin or something like that for breakfast, or coffee and a banana for breakfast. Then they don't eat until lunch, and they're too busy at their job to really sit down and have a proper lunch. So they eat a few little things. You know, they might have a good dinner, and then they start the next day and they start that process all over again. And doing that type of thing repetitively disrupts blood sugar greatly. Their blood sugar may not be below the lab range of where we get diagnosed with hypoglycemia. So in the medical world, they don't care until you get below the lab range, which is usually down around, I've seen it vary from 45 down to 65, something like that on the low end. You get people whose blood sugar starts to get down to an 80 or 75, and they're having major issues in function, especially the thyroid, because of the low blood sugar. When people have that lower blood sugar, we start to spike insulin in the body. Insulin is a pro-inflammatory substance in the body. It drives inflammation, so it drives the immune system. And so those fluctuations in the insulin are driving the immune system to have a greater attack. So that insulin, those spikes in insulin, whether it's someone with hypoglycemia or somebody with insulin resistance heading towards diabetes or somebody with diabetes, is definitely going to have an impact on the immune system and predispose somebody for autoimmunity. Right? Of course, I mean, I got to throw in there too. I mean, I know you said 3, but we got to look at environmental toxins and our exposure to environmental toxins in this world, and plastics. So many people think it's okay to drink out of a plastic water bottle. It's not. I used to work for Whole Foods when I was going through chiropractic school, and they would bring in their shipments and they'd drop them off at the back dock. And sometimes we had to wait until the evening to bring those shipments in, because the boxes they brought them in, the plastic boxes that they would come in, or even just the plastic water bottles on pallets, would be so hot you couldn't even touch them. And so we look at, they ship across the country in the back of a truck, and it can get to like 180 degrees in that truck, heating up that plastic, leaching into the water. And then you go and you grab one out of the refrigerator thinking, oh, the plastic water bottle is all cold and everything. So that's not a problem. I know it's not okay to drink a hot water, out of hot plastic, but you never know kind of where that water bottle's been. So, I mean, I highly recommend, not consuming anything that comes out of plastic, even if it is a cold item, because sometimes those things get shipped and they get heated in the shipment process. So that's really important. The other thing is, so many people have done like research and they go, okay, well, you know what, but I drink out of a water bottle that's BPA free.
Okay.
Right. But what people don't understand is there's BPB, there's BPD, there's BPE, and all those things are just as bad as BPA. So all they have to do is switch to one of those other types of plastics and say it's BPA free, but it's still filled with toxins, poisons, and things there. So staying away from those types of things in our environment, as many type of that, reducing that chemical exposure is also really important. I got to throw that in there.